about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I want to start today with this story where the nation's largest teachers union voted to cut ties with the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, a civil rights group. The teachers union is ending ties with a civil rights group that stops anti-Semitism and speaks out on anti-Semitism and hostages taken by Hamas and the rapes. And why? I can't explain it. They're a teachers union. You know, it's interesting. So, you know, being a daughter of an immigrant and the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, you know, you grow up hearing about how the majority of your family was slaughtered, you know, by Hitler. And then before that, during the Russian pogroms. And so you keep, you know, when I keep hearing about what happened in the stories in the early 1930s and in the mid 1930s, I'm like, how did nobody see the signs? Well, because you're young, you know, you play Monday morning quarterback. Obviously, it looks more obvious. And a lot of the signs were public displays of anti-Semitism, people discriminating against Jews. And you know, this sort of behavior, obstructing a Jew from you know, going to class. Oh, the stuff we're seeing right now in 2025 mirrors a lot of pre-Hitler rule. And now you have when academia is a big, you know, people say, who gives a damn what the colleges do? They're not important. They actually, unfortunately, academia is a huge network. And if you let anti-Semitism or discrimination or racism or misogyny or homophobia infuse into academia, it's a superhighway to society. Why? Because society gives so much power to academia. And so seeing now the largest teachers union voting to endorse a proposal that basically tells, I don't want to use the hand gestures, but basically giving hand gestures to the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, whoa. And I think they've been working together for decades. Now, this isn't all teachers union. This is the National Education Association, the nation's largest one. And so when you're trying to block a civil rights organization combating anti-Semitism, providing education on the Holocaust, especially when you have idiots out there denying that it happened, you know, and ensuring, because listen, I get it. You know, there's so much anti-Semitism and racism and misogyny and homophobia that I understand there can't be just one group trying to solve it all. You would think the ACLU would do a better job, but they're torn in so many different directions. So you have to have these other groups speaking. I mean, look at how there's Jews for Zoran, the New York City mayor, that won't speak against the globalization of the Intifada. I mean, that's some scary stuff. Didn't speak out, try to help hostages get out of Hamas control. I mean, you're having, if Jews don't defend themselves, how could we expect everybody else to? God bless the Catholics and the Christians and the Mormons and the Baptists and everybody out there that's you know, being supportive of Israel, you know, being supportive of the hostages, being supportive of stopping anti-Semitism. But something is wrong when your academia, especially the teachers union that teaches young kids, where they want to sever ties and they had the votes to do it. We could very easily be going into another 1930s situation here that we saw in Germany happen in America. And it's frightening because this is human nature. People want to hate. You really had to cut ties. Well, their excuse was, well, it's because we're pro-Gaza. Somebody has to pick a side. You don't necessarily, you could be for Palestinians being free and out of Hamas rule and pro-Israel. You could be, let's get these hostages home and prevent a terrorist group from ever attacking individuals at a peace rally and kibbutz and raping them and murdering and beheading babies. You could be in support of that, as well as support of no more war that could affect innocent Palestinians. But instead, society said, no, you got to choose one or the other. And so you have all these people looking pro-Hamas because that's what Hamas wants. Hamas wants people to hate Israel. Meanwhile, Israel's the one that got attacked. It's ridiculous. And to see this now happen in our schools, what is going on with these teachers' unions? I told you, I think, listen, most of the teachers I took care of as patients, awesome. I love the actual teacher, boots on the ground teacher. Administration, whoever is running academia like this is messed up in the head and is disgusting, which means, one of the first steps to infuse misinformation and racism and anti-Semitism is to block the proper information or the balance of information. And that's what it looks like they're doing. And I don't understand why we don't see more outrage. Because they probably think, well, it's not going to happen again. The Holocaust won't happen again because we have the UN. Really? Did the UN stop the Hamas attack? Is the UN really doing what they're supposed to do as it pertains to this? Where is the UN? What's going on here? And so I'm very, very frustrated. And I'm also very frustrated at Jews that are not speaking out and not saying this is ridiculous. And I'm also very frustrated that you have people that hate others based on their religion. So what? We can't be LDS. We can't be Catholic. We can't be Christian. We can't be Protestant. We can't be Muslim in this country. We're America. But you are seeing a growing trend of people hating or being open about hating Judaism and Israel. And that's scary. And we better speak up. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So this was interesting. We're kind of now opening our eyes on the different, shall we say, biological nuances that men and women may have. We do have XX and XY. So there are some XXY and even some XYY, but the majority of humans are XX and XY. However, there has been a pretty interesting case coming out of France where two women were convicted of defaming French First Lady Brigitte Macron. Macron's wife, who I think is older than him and was a teacher, apparently has been, her sex, biological sex, has been debated by people online. And Amandine Roy and Natasha Ray got themselves in trouble for saying that she's a man. After that, they said that they were subjected to intimidation by authorities. Ultra-protected members of the Paris establishment tried to cover up a state secret. Well, apparently a judge sitting for the Paris Appeal Court ruled that both of those women had every legal right to make these allegations, that Miss Macron, the wife of the French president, is a man. They could make the allegations. Lawyers for Macron, who was 72 years old, said she is absolutely devastated by this. She, has been married to Macron for a while. And the bloggers who did apparently this 4-hour YouTube video back in 2021, so this has been going on for a while, claimed that Brigitte was born as a baby boy called Jean-Michel Trignaud, which is the name of her brother. And Miss Macron was called Brigitte Trognaud before her first marriage. The defendants also claimed that her first husband, André Louis Aguirre, had never actually existed before his reported death in 2020 at the age of 68. Now, I don't follow any of this. I'm in America. I don't know. All I know is, she's married to Macron. She was older than him. People were, saying she's the hand that rocks the cradle, or what's that term when you, date somebody a lot younger than you? And so apparently the women originally were found guilty of libel. This had been appealed, and now they don't have to pay anything and can have been acquitted and can proceed with saying she was born a man. Now, why would we care about this? Well, the next thing that's going to happen, because it's really an issue that used to not be, but now because of transgender individuals, like transgender females who were born biologically male or in sports, there's now a lot of people bringing up, are some of these athletes or some of these individuals XY? And that's why they are superstars in their sports. I mean, the men have it easy, right? You got your LeBron James, your Steph Curry, you have your Tom Brady's, you got your men, although Tom Brady retired. Although you keep hearing him coming out of retirement. I don't think he is. I think he's done. He's making enough money now broadcasting. But, men, they have it easy. They don't have to worry about a woman coming in saying, that she wants to identify as a man. They have no problem. They're still going to be able to do their sport. Nobody is going to question their biological sex. But in the female spectrum of things, a lot of questions are coming up. And this all started when you had Leah Thomas and other individuals compete as females when they were biological male. Now, I told you I mixed on the topic. All right. If somebody is not a true, the true transgender individuals are rare. where they wake up going, I'm in the wrong body. I'm in the wrong body. I'm supposed to be, a completely different person than who I am. However, transgenderism has become much more nuanced where, I don't want to identify as a man anymore. I want to identify as a female. I don't want to identify as a female anymore. I want to identify as a man. And when you saw with Leah Thomas, he wasn't doing well as a male. And now she's doing better as a female athlete. Now you start to look at secondary gain. And are people going to manipulate a system where we have vulnerable women, XX women, in a sport? And when we start to see women lose out on them being able to compete, people think, well, women in sports, women don't take sports seriously. Women take everything seriously. We take national security seriously. We take the economy seriously. We take sports seriously. Oh, God, don't get me started. When football season comes, women take things seriously just like a man would. And you don't think a woman wants to be able to compete and compete fairly? And we know that men are built differently. I love the fact that men are built differently. I love men. It's nice. I want equality in work and pay if I do the same work and pay. But if they run faster, if they shoot balls better, if they punt better, that's they got muscle mass, bone mass. They're built differently. That's how nature made it. But we have a group of individuals that we used to call hermaphrodites that are intersex. And intersex individuals are born with both sex parts. They may have testicles and a vagina. They may be XY, but not necessarily growing a phallus or a penis. And so when you have individuals that may have, shall we say, the non-typical presentation of their sex, intersex individuals will oftentimes be raised as females because it's much easier for them to incorporate into society and safer for many of them, as opposed to being the smaller boy or the thinner boy or a boy with feminine features. Back then, in the olden days, you would get beat up on. Men were very domineering. They would dominate over other men. So if they were in the female spectrum of things, it would be safer for them. We would have to remove their testicles so they don't turn cancerous because the testicles would not descend. And, at least we could monitor a testicle. You could monitor to see if you're growing a mass. We recommend you check your testicles all the time. Well, not all the time, but every day to make sure you don't feel a mass. It's not a USPSTF recommendation, but just know your body so you can tell us if there's a growth. But in an intersex, the testicles may never drop. So how does somebody evaluate them to see if there's a mass? So they usually get removed. And then that child, if they do have a vagina and have more female characteristics, they might undergo hormones, they might not, will then be raised a female. And so I think there are a lot of individuals who people think are transgender who only knew the sex as being female. Transgender means you are transitioning and changing from something you were born as to something differently. Intersex individuals, the decision is made at birth by the doctor and by the parents. Now the child could change if they want to later, but it's a decision that they never knew differently because that's how they were born. And so I believe there are a lot of XY individuals that are living as females. Some of them know what their biological sex is. Some of them maybe don't know. And they are plagued with infertility, plagued with a lot of issues. But some of them may excel in sports. Some of the, what might be a curse in one respect could be a benefit because they may have athletic abilities because of their XY biological basis. Now, I'm not saying Macron's wife is intersex or et cetera, but there's going to be more and more of a call to now look at the genetics, because many individuals are feeling that now that transgenderism is becoming a lot more pervasive in sports. What if somebody is being more subtle about it? But the concern I have with that is if somebody is intersex and never knew, always lived as a female, are they going to be outed when they really needed that private? We have a lot of people questioning somebody's XX chromosomes, and a lot of them are going to find there's many people XY. It's just, how do you do that? It's I don't know. I'm mixed. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we are having a rise in tokophobia. You guys know what tokophobia is? It is fear of childbirth. And we are having more and more women so scared of going through what they saw Rachel Green went through on Friends or any other movie where somebody went through childbirth and was screaming and in pain, although it only lasted like a minute in the movies or in Hollywood. But people are so fearful of that pain that they don't want to get pregnant and they don't want to have kids. And it's real. In fact, you also have individuals who are pregnant that are so fearful of childbirth that they're asking for C-sections. And the majority of doctors don't want to do a C-section because a C-section is much more riskier than doing natural childbirth. And, mind you, I'm Gen X. So I grew up in the 80s. And I would get very bad period cramps. And I would be writhing on my bed or on the couch or on the ground. And my mom would give me Midol, Tylenol products, maybe some Motrin. And every month I dreaded. Not to mention, not only are you having the pain, but you're having the the bleeding and all the other stuff. And in the 80s, we had white jeans. So I couldn't wear my white jeans for a week. And if you don't wear white jeans, then everybody knows you have your period. That used to be when you were quiet about it. Now everybody talks about being on the period. Sorry, I have to call in from work. I'm on my period. Now everybody talks about it, but it used to be a private thing. And I remember my mom would tell me, look, okay, this is going to make labor easier. You are, because I'm like, why is this happening to us? Well, she said, well, it's because Eve gave Adam the apple and the serpent. Apparently that's something a lot of people think, that the reason why women get menstrual cramps is because what the sin Eve did not listen. She gave Adam the apple from the tree of life you weren't supposed to eat from, the forbidden fruit, and the snake talked her into it. So the snake now has to slither on the ground, and women now have period cramps. Okay, so I was told that as a kid. But what really, though, hit home is my mom said, this is going to prepare you for childbirth. You are going to have a resilience to pain because of this. Now, I don't want any woman struggling with the type of period cramps I had. It's miserable. And nowadays, doctors will let women and girls not even feel one cramp by giving them hormones, letting them do continuous birth control. There's a lot of things that doctors are doing now to help people not struggle with dysmenorrhea or painful cramps. But one question I have is, was my mom semi-right about how I gained a resilience to pain? Now, when I gave birth to my first one, I was in labor for 5 days. Now, the contractions started every 20 minutes, but I wasn't able to go to the hospital till I was like, I think at the 10-minute mark, a contraction every 10 minutes. I actually went in to be induced. The contractions started, but I wasn't dilating enough. And by day 3, they sent me home. They needed the bed. I missed the dog. I was fine. I was the only one leaving the OB ward still pregnant. Women are like, what happened to you? Do you have another one in there cooking? I'm like, I still haven't given birth. I remember leaving the 7th floor OB ward at UMC, but I was very grateful to the staff, only to come back a day and a half later. So 5 full days of labor and pain. I was exhausted. It was ridiculous. It was, but I did it. Now, they did give me Demerol. They did finally on day 5, once I was dilated enough, I got my epidural. So the actual end of labor, I didn't necessarily have to have the yelling and the screaming. So I still think my labor was easier than other individuals. But there is an argument that I don't know yet how we proceed with on how to endure pain better. And so you have some individuals who have never really experienced pain, so that they really freak out when it happens. And this is an important point. Then something we have to address, because I will have individuals call up the telemedicine company saying they are in excruciating pain, lower abdominal pain. So I'm like, it might be your appendix. You might have a burst diverticulus. You have a surgical abdomen. Then you need to go in, and get, if you're in that much pain, you need to go in and get seen. And then it turns out, mom or somebody else to say, no, she's having some diarrhea. She's having, the cramps, diarrhea, but she's never really experienced cramps. I go, well, I still can't tell over on the phone. But if you haven't, felt pain before, we always ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is your pain? The reason why we ask you that is because we are assuming you have had different levels of pain in your life, so you could compare this pain to another. My kidney stone pain was worse than my labor pain. If you guys are afraid, right, to give birth and to get pregnant because you're worried about labor pain, then you better be drinking your water and not get a kidney stone, because kidney stone pain was even worse. I thought I was going to die. That was even worse than childbirth, if you can imagine that. So, are we doing our women a service by helping stop their period pain so they could work, so they could function, so they don't have to be always taking medications, and that could be hurting their liver and kidneys and getting the headaches and getting all the issues? Are we doing them a service, preventing their periods and not having them have that pain? Or are we doing a disservice by them not building up a resistance to pain? 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. It's not for me as a doctor to tell somebody to be in pain. It's my job as a doctor to get people out of pain. But we are having this tokophobia that is now pervading people's life choices, decisions to, to have babies. And the interesting thing is your second pregnancy goes a lot easier than the first. But the first pregnancy is going to be tough. And it's going to be a longer labor, especially the older you are when you start. And people fearing that, going, I don't even want to make a baby. It's concerning. And maybe it's because TV and movies made it, what's the word for it? Where they romanticized it and they made it comedic, and maybe people are not getting a realistic picture. But the truth of the matter is it's painful. I mean, I would never want to be the man, though, because my husband was sitting there like helpless. You could see he wanted to help me, and I was writhing in that labor bed in pain, and I was just waiting. And I knew, but here's the thing, though: when you're in that much pain, you know there's a life depending on you. And so I had no problem getting pregnant again, wanting to get pregnant again, because I knew a baby needed that. And when you're a mom, what you will do for that child is amazing. But now you start to wonder if individuals don't even want to have the baby because they're fear of pain, how do they get that resilience? That's one of the reasons why we have a lot of dependency on pain medications and sleep medications. Yeah, I mean, we used to bear through our, back pain and our headaches and now it's as soon as we feel pain, we take something. So I think we need to have some pretty honest conversations about what is the best way to proceed. And I'm not saying everybody needs to suffer from painful period cramps. No, if you suffer from that or you have endometriosis, if you don't have to suffer, why suffer? Life is too short. So I do support doctors helping patients through dysmenorrhea. But we do have to have a discussion about, are we preparing them for nature and for life? And, I can't tell you how many times I was in pain, I was sick. I had to still function for my kids. Why? Because my body gained a resilience. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So for years, I've been talking about some of the risks with antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. Even though they may do amazing in terms of curbing somebody's anxiety, somebody's depression, there could be some problems when they start to feel better. So, for example, when somebody is really, really depressed and we start to treat them and they start to feel better, sometimes that coming from that abyss right there is the most, shall we say, vulnerable in terms of them deciding suicidality. When they're at the abyss, oftentimes people are so depressed that they just don't have the energy to try to kill themselves or the motivation to. But once they start feeling better, they go, you know what, I'm going to do it. And so when you do treat somebody with depression, if they say, I'm feeling better, I'm starting to feel better right away, you don't just go off and say, great, I'll see you in a couple weeks. You need to watch them closely because they could be feeling better to the point where they decide to act on things that they've wanted to act on before. But another issue we also have with antidepressants is the going off of them. What if somebody doesn't get the prescription filled? What if the pharmacy runs out? What if their insurance switches? What if they can't afford the copay? And so a big issue we've been having, which we've discussed on the show over the years, are some of these people, that these criminals or mass shooters or suicide attempts or suicide committing individuals in that window of, I haven't gotten my medication. And I went from doing well to now the abyss. You know, we speak about this with Ozempic and Zepbound and Wegovy, these weight loss drugs. Everybody's talking about how when you go on them, the heart health, the decrease in, so many risk factors for your liver, your kidneys, your heart, going on these medications and losing the weight, how quickly you could protect, vital organs and health. But we need to know the studies of the people that go off of them. How quickly is the rebound and how bad is that? So we've spoken for years of people going off of these antidepressants. Whoa. Whether it's withdrawal symptoms, whether it's them not being able to get their medication that they need, their behavior could be erratic, could be inconsistent, could be deadly to them or to others, depending on what they were taking and what they were taking it for. And so when you start an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication, you have to be there for the after. Yeah, I teach medical students this all the time. If you're going to start an ADHD medication, then what? So if that child needs it, for third grade, what are you going to do when they're in fifth grade? What about high school? Are they going to also then need it for college? Are they going to need it for a job? Starting a medication is easy. I could write a prescription, piece of cake. But now you got to manage it. And you also have to decide, when do they go off? When do they not need it? And so there's a process that many doctors aren't following because they don't see you again. You only see a doctor once and then you get somebody new. See, I was trained as a family doctor. So you used to see me for years. I loved it because I could say, wait a second, back in 2004, you did this, but then in 2007, you reacted better. I mean, I hadn't, even if I didn't have the chart, I remembered because I was taking care of them for so long. Now the average person sees a different doctor every time. So the doctor's like, well, here's your prescription, here's your refill. Who's doing that long-term management? Well, a study out of the UK said, look, not only do we have to worry about withdrawal symptoms in the short term, but long term. And the longer you're on a medication, the longer your withdrawal symptoms can go. So according to a study out of the UK, they surveyed NHS patients, which is their health system, and found that people who had used antidepressants for more than 2 years were 10 times more likely to have withdrawal effects, 5 times more likely for those effects to be severe. This is if you were on them for more than 2 years, and 18 times more likely for them to be long-lasting compared to those who only took the drugs for 6 months or less. For patients who used antidepressants for less than 6 months, withdrawal symptoms were mostly mild and brief. 3/4 reported no or mild symptoms, most of which lasted less than 4 weeks. Only 1 in 4 of these patients, this is being reported by Science Alert, was unable to stop when they wanted to. But for long-term users, more than 2 years of use of antidepressants, 2/3 reported moderate to severe withdrawal effects, 1/4 reporting severe withdrawal effects. So for individuals, in fact, 1/3 of long-term users had symptoms for 3 months. 4/5 of those patients just couldn't stop their antidepressants. They had to go back on them. Now, in the UK, 2 million people are on antidepressants. In the US, 25 million people. Now, there's a bunch of different types of antidepressants. But we spoke about how one group works, the SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Basically, when your body shoots out serotonin, the serotonin helps with your mood, with your pain control. Serotonin is involved in a lot of bodily functions, your bowel. And so a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor selectively inhibits the reuptake of the serotonin, so more of it gets to still stay active in the system before it gets scooped up. Well, your body will start to compensate and make more of these receptors, open them up again, open up more receptors. So now if you went from Prozac 10, let's say, or Paxil 10, all right, now you're going to have to go up to Paxil 20, and then, or Prozac 20, and then Prozac 40. And let's say you stop the medication. Now you have all these receptors that have now been compensatorily created, now empty. So when you do shoot out your natural serotonin, zoop, it gets sucked up fast. And so withdrawal from an SSRI is real. Withdrawal from an SNRI is real. If your brain is getting used to the dopamine and the epinephrine and then it doesn't get it anymore. Now, I'm not saying don't go on them. If you need to be on them, you need to go on them. Life is too short. And to manage depression and anxiety properly, it's not only medications, but therapy and a whole comprehensive plan, exercise, diet. But we have a system in medicine now where I fear January 1. Every January 1, I am seeing millions of people either lose their insurance or have to switch. Their employer is paying high rates, so they switch to a company where the rates might be cheaper. I've had to change insurance multiple times, and I have personal health insurance. Why? Because a company decides to skyrocket the rates. They say, well, we have to pay for people and their Wegovy. I go, I'm not on Wegovy. Well, we have to pay for that. So then I'm like, well, I'm going to drop you and I'm going to find a cheaper insurance. So the problem is every time your insurance changes, thank God I'm not on any chronic medications. The only thing I take is some bioidentical hormones, which I pay cash for. Insurance doesn't even pay for that for me. Because they don't, which I still don't understand why I'm paying for insurance, but neither here nor there. So the average person runs the risk of losing their medication or losing their medication coverage or having to switch. That's why we always recommend generic, because most insurance companies cover generic. But if somebody doesn't get their medication, what happens in that short term? What happens in that long term? And sometimes these withdrawal symptoms are something you internally have to deal with, where you can't sleep and you're not feeling well. But for some people, they act out, lash out to other individuals. And so I agree that if somebody is on medication and somebody needs medication, you have to be prepared for what happens if they don't get that medication. Now, for mild depression, mild anxiety, we don't want you on the medicine long term. Many of these medications are looked at as, what to do in the short term. Somebody died, you lost a job. But, there's many people that get dependent on them. And now they're on them long term. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.